Good day, everyone. This is the morning meeting, the final morning meeting for this week. It's June 6th, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. in California, some other time in Tokyo. Thank you for joining. Sean, Dan, and I are here on this momentous day to tell you about everything coming up. As always, we'll be forward-looking to tell you about everything. Thank you for being part of the morning meeting. If you want to ever ask a question, please raise your hand if you're here on the two-way platform. That's where the questions get asked, as Andrew Grog knows well. Already has his hand up, Andrew. Thank you. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, today, no smack in the chat, ever. No smack in the chat, please. And we do that because we're trying to be different. We're trying to have all voices under one roof. And if you hear something you don't like, rather than writing smack in the chat, listen closely because your fellow American, likely speaking for tens of millions of others, is trying to tell you something. So please do that. Sean, would you like to tell everyone where you are, or do you want it to remain an undisclosed location?
Just off King Street in Alexandria. I'm about to announce the brand new opening of a Sephora location. That's what I'm doing on the side. Yeah, so no, I'm in Old Town Alexandria on location.
You're a franchisee.
Yeah.
And Dan, are you a believer in Pacers in 6?
Yes, or they're gonna get spanked in the next 4 straight. One or the other.
All right. We'll see. If you didn't stay up and watch the game last night, you missed a confirmation.
But that's, I will say this. The one thing that the NBA's got going for it is that you have to watch the end of these games. I mean, that thing.
I agree with that, but I'll say I've never seen a player like Halperin. I've never seen a player who can make that running shot like he does. I don't know who else has that in their repertoire. It's a great
By the way,
shot.
Mark, it's a little early, but winner of the week, a candidate has to be Tom Thibodeau now. After they blew that lead, just like the Knicks did. Sure,
yes,
he feels a little better today.
Yes, sir. All right. We could recap Musk versus Trump from yesterday, but we won't because that's not what this show's about. So we're going to talk about it in a forward-looking way. Here's Caroline Levitt last night on Hannity, and this is kind of a just give you an idea of what the public posture of Team Trump is. 104, please.
Tonight, the president's focus and the focus of the entire White House remains on passing the one big beautiful bill. And as your audience just saw on Friday, just days ago, the president graciously hosted Elon Musk in the Oval Office, and Elon thanked the president for his incredible leadership to cut waste, fraud, and abuse in our government, which this one big beautiful bill does. So the only difference between Friday and today is Elon went back to his companies, and as a businessman, he has a right to speak for his companies. But as president, President Trump has a responsibility to fight for this country. And the one big beautiful bill is the most historic piece of legislation that has moved through Capitol Hill in modern day history.
All right, I was so excited to cover the story that I forgot to do the day book. So rewind, let me do that. The White House put out the president's schedule for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They don't typically do that. Here's what he's doing today: executive orders, closed press, at least for now, 1:30. Then 2 o'clock.
By the way, hey, real quick on that.
Yeah.
Seb Gorka was on the show. He hinted at a major AI counterterrorism type of executive order. So I believe that will be open and that there will be a big sort of national security type announcement.
All right, good to know. Thank you for that. Swearing in ceremony for the Navy Secretary at 2, and then he leaves for the White House at 3, and he doesn't arrive into Bedminster till 6:10. Paul Wilkie pointed out, Sean, that that's a longer travel time than is normally allotted for Bedminster. Any idea why that would be?
It's interesting. I guess there's always what they call an OTR, which is an unscheduled event. So obviously he takes the helicopter to Andrews, and then they'll probably the smaller plane to Bedminster. So I've got to wonder if there's a stop that they're not announcing along the way. Once the pool gets on board, they tell them, hey guys, we're going to drop here and do a quick OTR thing. But that's just obviously, I could drive to New Jersey in that time.
Yeah.
Even on a Friday.
Yeah. Al Gore once stopped by my house unannounced when he was vice president. So maybe the president's coming here. I'll leave the lights on. Unprecedented, I believe, in American history. Saturday. Okay. The president's going to UFC in New Jersey, but that's not the unprecedented part because he's done that before. According to the official White House schedule, the president departs for the event at 9:30 p.m. I'm not sure there's ever been an announcement to leave for a presidential thing at 9:30. There probably has. But here's, I believe, the unprecedented part. According to the official White House schedule, the president departs the event at 1:35 a.m. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's been a presidential event that's gone that late local time, but I don't think so. 1:35 a.m. is his scheduled departure time. So that's exciting. And then he goes back to Bedminster, and then Sunday he comes back to D.C. Vice President, no public schedule known to me. A few things going on the Hill. Senate is out, House is in. Hakeem Jeffries' 10:45 press conference. And in Boulder today, the alleged accused suspect has another arraignment a day after he was charged. All right.
Mark, I just got to hold on. I just want to say the reason I believe there's just something epic about this little tussle that's happening with Elon and them simultaneously releasing a schedule saying he's going to a UFC fight.
Yes.
Like I don't, to me, that wasn't lost on me.
Although the president, the Village People song the president is most closely associated with is YMCA. It's another reminder that when he feels it appropriate, he goes with the macho man card. I believe that you could be onto something. Okay. So we played Caroline Leavitt. The official White House line is Elon's being Elon. He's a private business person, whatever. Publicly, some interesting things going on. Yesterday, Politico reported that there was going to be a call between unnamed Trump aides and Musk to try to patch things up. Both Laura Loomer and Bill Ackman went on Twitter to say, guys, patch this up. Elon tweeted late in the day, yeah, we should patch this up in response to Ackman. So it seemed like we might be headed towards a rapprochement. Then Reuters erroneously, we believe, reported that Trump was going to talk to Musk today. And Susie Wiles, NBC News, has said, no, Trump is not going to talk to Musk. Now, the president has talked to two news organizations by phone. There's several reporters, I won't give you the complete list, although I think I have a pretty good sense of the list, who have Donald Trump's cell phone number. And they're judicious about when they call, because if you call them 100 times, they probably no longer get through. Two of the key practitioners of call Trump when you need to, when there's big news, are Jonathan Karl of ABC News and Dasha Burns, formerly of NBC, now of Politico. She's the one had a very brief conversation with the president. It led to this headline.
I thought the headline was
105.
Her.
No.
Oh,
she called.
okay.
She called him. She got a brief interview, and whether the president said it to her or not, she wrote in her story again before anybody else reported this. There may be a call today, and she leaned pretty hard. There would be a call today between Trump's staff and Musk to try to sort things out. Okay. Then this morning, Jonathan Karl, 108, put on Twitter this. In a phone conversation, Donald Trump told me Elon Musk is, quote, the man who has lost his mind. Trump did not, however, seem angry or even concerned about the feud. As for reports that there is going to be a Trump-Musk call scheduled for today, Trump told me he is, quote, not particularly interested in talking to Musk, although he says Musk wants to talk to him. Wonder how he knows. If true, wonder how he knows that. So, Sean, first thing is, talk about this phenomena of reporters having Donald Trump's number. Did they have his number when you were the press secretary? And how do you think the White House staff deals with that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a story. I can't say it entirely because there's a tell in how it's told to me. But at one point I was lashing back about a story that was in a particular outlet. And the reporter, who I've known for quite some time and I do respect, called me. And again, I won't use his exact words because I think you would know who I'm talking about and a lot of other people. And he just said, slow your roll. And I was like, and I said, what do you mean? He goes, you know my sourcing. And I was like, oh my God. So it took a while to realize that a lot of these guys who were reporting stuff, and most of them are the ones that you know of that have good reputations, that have been covering Trump for quite some time, call them and they'll agree to ground rules. Like you can't report that on the record or it's on background. But it's been a frustration. I mean, going back, he's been doing this. If you read the books, he used to, I mean, he's been his own best spokesperson and PR agent forever. So yes, it's a frustration, but it's a reality of life that when you become part of his press team, you realize real quick, this is how the game is played under him.
Yeah. So Dan, what's your sense from the totality of what we know? Are they patching things up today, or it's unclear, or not? What would you say?
I think they're going to, I think they both have an interest in dialing this down. I think they will by the end of the day, or certainly by the weekend. I think it's classic Trump, right? I'm not calling him. He's calling me. He's the beggar. It just always has to be that way. And I do think that Trump doesn't necessarily need Musk. He'd like him. The party would like him. JD Vance would like him. The House would like him for their upcoming midterms. Elon needs Trump. I mean,
Yes.
Elon is the second biggest contractor to the United States government. Every single one of his companies is highly regulated. And what is one of the points of the feud? His AI company is in a kind of epic struggle with Sam Altman-Fried, and he wants in on those deals. He wants federal money. So, I think Tesla fell 18% yesterday within an hour once this really kind of went to 11. So Musk is the beggar in this, and he needs to patch it up.
Sean, this is not this. I'll just set you up. You go wherever you want. This is not a joke. It's a serious question. Is it the ketamine talking? I mean,
I want to be it's actually a really good question, and I want to be respectful. I don't know, but I feel like when you start throwing out accusations and going to DEFCON 1 as quick as he did, that took it beyond policy differences, which is where it started. I still believe good money is on a patch up. But I've known Trump long enough that he is watching this thing play out, realizing that 90%, if not more, of the sort of respondents are Team Trump. And, Musk has a little that he brings to the fight. And I think Trump's view is, you know what? I win this fight. I can't back down, and Elon needs to come to me. And then you're dealing with Elon, who says, I'm not calling him and apologizing. So I think good money is still there, but I can't get my head around somebody's got to blink first. And I don't think that Elon is the kind of guy that is going to do that. And that's the only way that Trump will let this go.
Extraordinary subplot that is barely covered in the press today. It's just amazing to me. And again, it's part of the soap opera and the character drama, but it has implications for the whole thing, which is Stephen Miller and his wife. One works for Trump and one works for Musk. And they're both friends with Musk. So, Sean, what do you know about the Millers and how they're handling this?
I don't, and I've tried to stay out of that for that exact reason. I don't. I think they probably have enough of their own conversations. But you're right, the dynamic is huge. Katie, the wife, went to work for Doge and then started splitting her time as a paid employee. From what I understand, I don't know that for certain. So I think at the end of the day, she's always been Team Trump. So we'll see how this thing plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing keeps going. But look, here's what I will tell for every person that's listening to this that says, oh, my God. I mean, we talked about the other day whether Elon would be with Trump in the midterms. If you think about the number of people that have walked out of Trump's orbit for 24, 48 hours a month, said nasty things, and then suddenly are back in the fold strong, people have written books about crapping all over him. People have said some pretty horrible things. This idea that somehow this relationship is forever fractured is not true. That may take a little tender love and care to get back on track, but no one should overthink this, that this how is it could go south or continue to go south, but it is completely 100% repairable if you look at the past 8 years.
Totally
Mark,
agree.
do you guys...
just one clarification real quick. I didn't mean to refer to Katie Miller as Stephen Miller's wife. She's a accomplished professional in her own right. I assume most of you know who Stephen Miller is and don't necessarily know. So that's why I said it the way I did. But she's a key player in this because again, she's been a Trump person, but she's now, as far as we know, working for Elon Musk. Dan.
Do you guys, I mean, how do you guys think people like Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, like on some level, the Valley has a lot invested that this thing not go south and completely implode? Do you think they are helping to try to say, hey, you need to kiss and make up a little?
I can tell you, I can summarize the view of the Valley in one short phrase: eye roll emoji. They're very familiar with both personalities. They think it's but they think it's all just drama and soap opera, and they agree with Sean. It's gonna roll back into place under some terms that are more favorable to Trump.
So if I had to predict how this goes, it's almost like the fight where everyone just acknowledges we're going to move on and not talk about it and not rehash this. I don't see any kind of situation where Elon calls and says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have gone there. That's not going to happen. I think it's like, hey, let's agree to stop going after each other. Everybody agrees to that. And then let's play it out. And at some point in the future, we can all laugh about this. But I don't see a situation where there's a phone call and it's, I'm sorry, you were right, I was wrong. It's, hey, let's just have a détente, a little armistice, and I'm sure we'll see each other in a few months.
No chance he shows up Saturday night at the fight with them?
There's a chance.
Oh.
100%. Of course he could.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering
if
if they walk in together.
I won't recap it here, but if you want to hear my take on Trump's capacity to forgive people when it's in his interest and bring them back in the fold, go to Next Up and listen to my reported monologue, which includes my own experience with Donald Trump being in and out as a journalist. I recommend that to you. I won't repeat
What do you think the odds are that there's a truth that comes out in the next little hour saying, just so you know, the key to the White House doesn't work, Elon?
Exactly.
Or had the lock
changed.
Had the lock changed.
He could. I think Trump, as you suggested, and others have close to Trump have said to me, is he's just waiting and watching, enjoying the coverage, and deciding what the price for readmission is.
Yeah,
and he'll set it. All right, we'll take your questions, and I think maybe some of you will want to ask about this, so we'll come back to it. This story should not, on any logical way, have outshone what occurred yesterday on China, which is, and of course, we have no readout, as far as I know, whatsoever, of what happened with the German chancellor on Ukraine, but
who's just fine with that, by the way.
But that's another matter. At least three significant things on China yesterday in the Oval Office when the president, after a few minutes, decided to go after Musk, which we won't talk about why he changed his mind and didn't take a pass. Number one, the president said, contrary to the view of Bacha and others, that there should be no Chinese students in the United States whatsoever at universities, said it was an honor for Chinese students to attend America, for America to host Chinese students here. And when Donald Trump uses that word honor, it's always a tell of something. So number one, he said, yeah, we don't want spies and fungus traffickers here, but regular Chinese students, it's an honor. Two, he announced that the Chinese negotiating team includes not just Scott Bessent and Jamison Greer, but also Howard Lutnick, added Howard Lutnick to the negotiating team. Talk about that. And then three, he said she had invited Trump and the First Lady to China for a summit, and the president had reciprocated. Sean Spicer, man of many predictions, had told you that on this program for quite some time. So Dan, pick up on any or all three of those. Where did yesterday's phone call and then readout from the president leave us on the issue of U.S.-China relations?
You know, it's interesting because just as Trump has been making the point pretty clearly that Musk wants to speak to him, it was made pretty clear by the Chinese, and there has been no rebutting by the White House, that Trump called Xi and Trump wanted that call. So it appears a little bit like the game is coming to the Chinese, right? Trump wanted to speak to them. Trump's now willing to go to China to talk to them. Sean, you've said this hat tip now going back to, I think, February, that there would potentially be some sort of summit. And of course, what comes out of that is anybody's guess. The student comment was comical. I mean, it's kind of like Iran, where it's like they can have nuclear materials. No, they can't have nuclear materials. Like, we're going to have the greatest inspectors, I think he said, ever. So, I mean, look, if they get together, that's good. And I think the $1 million question is, what can Trump pull, what rabbit can he pull out of the hat, with the Chinese very intent on not showing weakness and that they lost?
Sean.
So, look, I think the thing that was interesting to me about the China student issue is what I brought up yesterday. Like, you can't, if you're going to go after them on trade and economic issues, and then at the same time be whacking them with a stick and saying, hey, here's how many people we're not going to let in the United States. That's really, when you talk about whole of government things, which is getting everyone in a room and saying, what are we doing to China? You can't. They're not going to react well to that on the economic front if you're whacking them on the diplomatic front by not allowing visas to be issued to their students. So you can do both.
By the way, a lot of their kids.
Right.
Not just anybody, their children. Yep.
Exactly. And I think that this gets back to the sequencing. They needed to say, let's focus on the economic piece first. Let's focus on the trade issues first. Get that solved, then go to this. There has to be a sequencing, a diplomatic sequencing to the issues you want to bring up. And going all in on all of your remedies at once is not a good recipe for success. And I think they kind of came to him and said, hey, why don't we ease on this, because that's not what we're focused on, and we'll go from there.
Sean, what do you make of the Lutnick addition to the China trade team?
I think that Howard, he's been very involved in all of these trade deals. And look, I was the assistant U.S. trade rep under Bush. There's always this dynamic of wanting to be in the room, right? And commerce, obviously, and both and USTR are critical to trade and economic issues. Treasury, has largely historically taken the lead, but I think commerce wants to preserve its right. Howard's obviously been extremely involved in these trade negotiations, and I think it's the right move. You need to show we're a united team, because it's not about just China. It's when Howard picks up the phone and talks to someone at the EU or in South America and says, they need to know, oh, that guy's a player. So I think it's a smart strategic move to include him in the discussions.
Is it a little good cop, bad cop too? Potentially put the pit bull in there and let Bassett be the one to kind of clean it up a little, or no?
Yeah, it's possible, but I think more than anything, it had to do with making sure that you preserve the status of commerce.
Interesting.
All right. I hear from folks all the time about the president's approval rating in the economy. For supporters of the president, including some very close to him, who say, look at how his approval rating stands. Look at where the economy stands. You guys are missing this story. Things are going very well. He's not up for re-election. Obviously, the midterms will, to some extent, be a function. How they go will be a function of what his approval rating is and how the economy is. So it's worth tracking for that reason. I don't think it really makes much of a difference on his legislative agenda. I don't think his support in Congress is dependent on whether his approval rating is 42 or 46. But here's today's job figures, which are job figures first, if you would, it says more than expected payroll increase, unemployment's about the same. These numbers aren't great, but a lot of the economic data is pretty positive. It's just true. We could run through it, but there's some positive. And then if you look at his job approval rating, again, it's not gangbusters. He is, as the pros say, underwater. His disapproval is higher than his approval. But in the current day, for presidents, a 47%, is that what that says? 47?
Yeah,
a 47% approval rating in this age of polarization, and given where Trump has been historically, it's pretty good. Sometimes when the president talks about his poll numbers, he's fibbing. But now when he says it's as high as it's been, even though he wouldn't want to admit that his disapproval is higher, he's not wrong. So Dan, if you were the president's pollster or political director, and he said, "How's the economy doing? How's my job approval?" What would you tell him?
Yeah, I think the two are very linked. And I think it goes to the conversation we just had with China, which is, look, we all laugh about the TACO acronym, but the reason the economy is stabilized is there is a sense that Trump is not going to really go through or back to the early days of liberation with these astronomically high tariffs and some sort of long-term showdown with China where we turn the screws to them and see who cries uncle. The feeling amongst a lot of the business community is he's backed off. He's trying to find a way to kind of declare victory and get out. The jobs number is not a leading indicator. It's a laggard, right? It is a rear view mirror. And I think the sense is inflation is decent. Companies are not having to pass on tremendous amount of costs right now. They're not having to do layoffs because there's been no cliff we've fallen off. The question is, if Trump cannot get out of this, if he does on July 9th say, I'm going back to everything, you'll see another hemorrhaging of companies going crazy. So I think the challenge is your approvals are good. The economy is good because you backed off on tariffs.
So look, the funny thing about the economic numbers this morning, the expectations were between 120 and 130. It came in at 139. And leading into today, the narrative in all these financial reports and in the morning shows was, we'll see if this is the month. They are rooting for a bad economy. And month after month since February, the media has said, this will be the month that we finally see all of these Trump policies manifesting themselves. And month after month, he's beat expectations. The bottom line is, go look at the stock market that everyone thought was going to collapse. Go look at these numbers, right? It's so funny how wrong the media is over and over and again. And all these prognosticators that talk about how Trump's policies are going to crush the economy. In this, we had the same people say the same thing in the first term, and we had one of the best economies this nation has ever seen. So I've stopped really caring about these so-called experts and what they think. Look at the results. They're coming through for the American people and for our economy. Secondly, on his approval rating, I had both of the McLaughlin brothers on last Friday. They've got his approval at 51. Regardless of whether it's 47 or 51, I think he's very happy with it. The base is extremely solid. And if he continues to deliver for the American people on all of these things, it's going to continue to rise. So I can tell you from talking to a lot of his top aides, both on the outside and inside the White House, they feel great.
I will say though, Sean, these economic numbers are very similar to Joe Biden's economic numbers. So I would
but
not
Dan,
say
I guess the point is
no,
for
I
4
know what
years
you're
we
saying.
heard why they weren't
no,
that
I
bad,
know.
and now it's everyone's rooting for collapse.
Yeah, I mean, just like, look, I mean, under Biden, like there was all this talk in 2024 that things were going to collapse, right? It didn't, right? But the perception kind of stuck. So I hear you that it does. The floor has not fallen out on Trump, and for that they can claim credit.
One word answer for the next question. Then we're going to do winners and losers and what to look for, and then to your questions for the community. So please raise your hand if you want to get in it. John McCain's famous and much derided question: are the fundamentals of the U.S. economy strong? Leave aside the uncertainty of tariffs, which is a big variable, obviously, but leave that aside. Leaving aside the uncertainty of tariffs, Sean, are the fundamentals of the U.S. economy currently strong?
Yes.
Dan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Winners and losers of the week. Sean earlier told us, like on Wednesday, he already knew he was picking. So, Sean,
Drum
winner.
roll, Sean.
Winner.
Winner of the week, Rick Astley. Rick hit 1 billion streams on Spotify for Never Gonna Give You Up. Everyone who has been Rickrolled has now been part of that huge accomplishment. Congratulations, Rick Astley.
I have no idea who that is. Okay.
What?
No, are you serious? You know the song "Never Gonna Give You Up"?
No.
Have you seen?
My God!
What's the name? What's the name of the movie, Sean? Guys, help me out. What's the name of that movie? British movie. Come on.
Oh, I don't know the movie.
Yes, you do.
By the way, anyone who ever says that Rick Astley's a one-hit wonder doesn't know what they're talking about.
Dan, I'm sorry. You've never heard of Rick Astley or the song "Never Gonna Give You Up" or the concept of being Rickrolled?
No, I've never.
Are you a Chinese spy?
Apparently.
Donald Trump is president.
Whoa.
You know that, right?
Yes.
Dan.
I have no idea what any of that is.
Dan, I'm just dumbfounded, but I can't believe nobody's telling me what the name of the movie is.
I don't know. I'm a pretty big 80s
somebody put
John
in the chat.
Hughes.
There's a no, it's not John Hughes. There's like a British movie, like ensemble movie where
Go to IMDb.
where the Rick Astley song plays a huge role. Does nobody knows what I'm talking about? Making me mental. All right, Dan, who's your winner?
IMDb.
All right, I'm going to say that the Democratic Party after this, because we were having a pretty bad week with Corinne Jean-Pierre, and the Trump-Musk feud completely knocked us off the front pages, gave us a little bit of time to, regroup.
Oh, Professor Turrentine, I want to take your class. I mean, that's grading on a curve.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
Okay. The film,
it's been a bad 18 months, Sean.
Thank you, Kelly. The name of the movie is Love Actually. Love Actually.
Oh, with Hugh
Grant or whatever.
Yeah. All right. My winner of the week is someone who has had a series of wins, but I believe the clip I'm about to show you solidifies this person's place, approaching James Addison Baker 3D status. Please roll number 107. No. Not this.
Oh, I know this song.
All right, that's not the clip I meant, but thank you.
Who's the most impressive member of the Trump cabinet or White House staff so far to you?
Oh.
But hold on. We got to go back. Don't play this. This is my loser. You go back and play the other one.
Who's the most impressive member of the Trump cabinet?
You got to get the audio up, though.
So far to you.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Who's the most impressive member of the Trump cabinet or White House staff so far to you?
Oh, Basson by a mile. I mean, Basson knows what he's talking about.
Go ahead. Tell me what he's doing that you think is good for the country.
He's saving us from the erraticism of having the bond yields go up, from having massive economic instability. Look, the one thing I disagree in certain places on Basson, but no one can say when you hear Basson speak that he doesn't understand the American economy, that he doesn't understand the bond market.
That's Ro Khanna from my interview with him on Next Up, but kind of remarkable to have a Democratic congressman laud him as if he's, Bob Rubin or Jim Baker or somebody else as Treasury Secretary. So for his consolidation of support, he's my winner of the week. Sean, loser.
I'm going to stay in the genre, and my loser of the week is Jerry Halliwell of the Spice Girls, who decided that the Spice Girls is not an thank you. It is not an inclusive name and does not think they should be called Spice Girls anymore. So leave it to Posh Spice Victoria Beckham to come to the rescue and rename her Woke Spice.
Which spice was she originally before the renaming? Jerry.
So Ginger is Jerry Halliwell, and
Ginger.
Victoria
Okay.
is Posh.
Okay. Dan, loser.
Sean, I'll tell you a funny story. My wife and I were in Paris a few years ago, having a drink on 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. We were the only two people in the courtyard. We look over, the other two people, David and Victoria Beckham, and we chatted with them over a drink for 10 minutes. That's my
And
one
they're,
time.
and they're now best friends.
Yes.
Dan.
And complimenting my wife's pants. My loser of the week is JD Vance, because I think he definitely wanted Elon Musk in the fold and like full throttle on behalf. I think it makes it a little harder for Uncle Elon to be front and center for JD Vance now.
Oh, I don't think so.
All right. Sean
It's a curve, Sean.
Sean disputed both of yours, but you're not knowing what a Rickroll is. Sean, explain to Dan what Rickroll is.
You randomly call somebody and it just suddenly comes on, or you send them an email and say, click on this link.
Yeah. Anyway, Dan, you'll Google it. So I'm certain there's a Wikipedia entry for Rickroll. My loser of the week is either Rahm Emanuel or the person who's doing Rahm Emanuel's communications. Here he is doing yet another podcast interview with Dasha Burns. And I mean, just look at this background. Look at where he's sitting. Go to the single. Go to the single shot, because you get a better look at the background. I mean, come on. What about that says presidential? It's the most ridiculous backdrop.
Well, remember, he did this with Gavin Newsom too.
I'm saying it's another interview where he's sitting in his empty office with a Cubs hat peeking out there. I mean, it's ridiculous. And not to mention the fact that look how low the camera is. It's shooting up his nose. This is poor production for someone who claims he can be the Democratic nominee.
Yep.
So for that, he is our loser. Sean, what are you looking for this weekend?
We kind of mentioned it earlier. I want to see who attends the UFC fight. That to me, shows who's a center right now.
It's Kremlinology. Who's front and center for that event? Dan, what are you doing tomorrow night if not going to the fight?
Oh, I will be celebrating my in-laws' 50th wedding anniversary is what I will be doing.
Okay.
Way upstate New York here. Speaking of New York, we haven't talked about it, but I am watching the New York City mayoral race polls. I assume after their debate this week that some of these news organizations have gone into the field. Question is whether Andrew Cuomo can hold off this kind of surge from a 33-year-old socialist that AOC just endorsed. So I know.
Let me ask you this, just out of curiosity.
Very confident in Andrew. I sense a little less, but
if she were to win, would Adams have any better of a chance?
Yes.
Yes.
Or a Republican. Yes.
If he's the Democratic nominee, Andrew's on the general election ballot as well.
Yeah.
So if this guy's the Democratic nominee, someone else will be mayor, and it's just going to be a question of who, almost certainly, because there'll be a consolidation around somebody. I'm looking for two things in New York. One is more endorsements in the mayoral race, because there's some big ones out there that haven't weighed in yet. And the other, of course, is Yankees Red Sox here in Gotham City, Yankee Stadium. I will be traveling to the Bronx at least one of the nights. Hope it doesn't rain. All right, now to your questions. Again, if you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand if you'd like to get in on the conversation. As always, everything out of your mouth should be redolent of peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace for all. And do not mock Dan for not knowing what a Rickroll is, because we've already done it enough.
Oh, I know that song. I love that song. I Googled it. I didn't know who sang it.
You can say, I know that song. I love that song. But when you're told Rick Astley is never going to give you up, and you say, I don't know that song, it's a little bit.
I don't know who Rick Astley was, so it didn't pop into my mind. I didn't know that's who sang it.
Again, okay. I don't know your definition of no. Yes, if you hear it, it's something that's familiar to you. But
depends what the definition of no is.
Sean, how many downloads did you say? 1 billion?
What?
How many downloads? 1 billion?
Oh yeah, he hit 1 billion on Spotify alone.
What else? What else has 1 billion? Anything?
That's why this is such a big deal. I don't know. I imagine Taylor Swift has hit something on that.
Somebody look that up. I want to know the complete list of songs with 1 billion. Andrew, unmute. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are, and what would you like to share with the two-way community by way of comment, question, or recipe?
I'm in north of Baltimore, Maryland. So two things. First, no, not Dundalk. You've asked me that last time. I guess.
Oh, sorry,
Sean. But first, kind of an observation and then a question.
By the way, that's the extent of my Maryland geography.
Well, it's not too far. I'm like 20 minutes from there, so not too far. But first thing is kind of observation is I kind of feel like it looks to me like, I feel like a lot of people are kind of in the same boat, especially on the right that I am. Like your heart is kind of with Elon, but your head is with Trump. So I think that's kind of where a lot of people kind of have this internal battle that I kind of saw play out online yesterday. And the other thing is, like, I'm kind of really impressed with Trump for actually being somewhat reserved in his response yesterday. So this just kind of reinforces the fact that I think Trump 2.0 seems to be a little bit more listening to the advisors and playing it down. Because, you know, you would think when someone accuses you being in the Epstein files, you know, at that point, the gloves come off and you're going to say whatever comes to mind. But I was kind of pretty shocked and proud of him for not, you know, not really taking the bait on that too much. Second thing is kind of just about the reconciliation bill. This is a question. I think I want Dan to answer this one. So when it comes to the Medicaid cuts, I know Sean's talked about how, like, it's not really a cut because we're still going to spend like 150 billion more over the next, you know, so many years. The big thing that they keep bringing up is people are going to get kicked off their healthcare, all that stuff. As a Democrat, why do you defend people who are able-bodied, who aren't taking care of other people, receiving government benefits when they don't work? Like, this is the part of me that, like, I just don't understand as to why. Like, I thought in the 90s, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, and they all came together and we changed this. We're going to work and we're going to get people off. We're going to get people off. And I watched a really great interview with, I think, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. And he said, sometimes the first way to better yourself is to get up off the couch. So, like, I just don't understand why the Democrats are going to bat for illegal immigrants getting Medicaid and able-bodied people sitting at home getting Medicaid. So I just kind of don't understand why that seems to be like a winner for the Democrats.
It's a great set of questions. And you're right. Welfare reform, you know, was pretty successful in the 90s under Bill Clinton. I think two things. I don't hear as much defending that illegal immigrants should continue to receive Medicaid. That there's been less kind of like people standing up as a party. There may be folks on the fringe, because there always are. The able-bodied question is one that I think you're right. Like, there's the dignity of work. If you can and you are able, you should. It tends to create a more stable home life. If you have children, like, it's more stable to have a job, and to hopefully it's a job that can give you the benefit of healthcare. I think that where this gets very complicated is sometimes you have people who are taking care of, you know, elderly parents, or they have, you know, sick children. Like, you could say, okay, here are all these excuses. I don't want to hear it. Like, my life is complicated too. But that is where there is, and this is becoming less a Democrat pushback than a bipartisan pushback, because you have Republicans from, you know, Josh Hawley's the best example from Missouri, who are really adamant about not making changes to this. And you have some other kind of Southern Republicans who are very nervous, who have an extremely high number of Medicaid recipients in their states. So you're right. In my opinion, and I think most of the people in the party, if you are an able body, you're not going to say that's not a good thing. But
you keep bringing up like 10.9 million people are going to get kicked off their healthcare, but like a large chunk of those people are what we consider able-bodied. So like, when you make that argument, it just kind of falls.
I haven't seen that, but okay, like, I know I think it's 1.4 are illegal immigrants, so, you know, that takes it down to about 9.3 or so million now that you're talking about. I have not seen a breakdown of able-bodied or not, but we'll find out, I think.
Yeah. But look, to answer your question, because I think it's a great question, is simple sells better. And so if you can say, stop cutting Medicaid, and then I have to explain, here's the difference. You're spending what, 685 billion this year, and we'll go up to 825 billion. Here's, like, people are like, yeah, but I didn't hear that. Democrats have done a much better job over the years of protecting. The fiefdom has got to be protected at all costs. That's what they do. Right. And so to answer your question, because they don't want anything, they don't want to admit any of these programs need reform because it opens the door. So the reality is that Republicans, and this is where I've pressed a lot of the folks that have come to my show at night, is you guys need to sell this better. You need to start talking, showing people, here's the actual chart. I put it up the other day. I put it on social media. I've sent it to countless people in the administration and on Capitol Hill and said, guys, just start carrying this chart around. Show them here. Because when Axios this morning talked about Medicaid cuts, that's a lie. It's just not true. It's you know, maybe in Washington, people are okay with the fact that if you get more, but it's not what you wanted, that's a cut. But that's mathematically not true. We keep talking about misinformation, disinformation. And the reality is that if you get more money than you did the year before, you got more. That's not a cut. And we, as a Republican Party and a conservative movement, need to push back very forcefully.
Well, but the reason that it grows is because there's more people coming into the program. But yeah, okay.
Andrew, thank you. All right. So in the space of Andrew's questions and his responses from my colleagues, I developed an enormous number of updates I now need to give you. First, yesterday, I asked, and other reporters asked, with Musk on the outs now, what happens to all the Doge people that he put in the government? And the Trump administration officials said they're all staying, Doge continues along, etc. Politico is reporting that James Fishback, the chief architect behind the proposal to send Doge checks, told them Friday he's stepping away from the movement after Musk lashed out at Trump. So there's one departure. And again, it just, to me, defies human nature to say there aren't going to be more departures. Even though Musk wasn't going to be there, I think a lot of these folks, you know, they don't love what's going on. They don't love the whole thing because it's not working out the way some of them anticipated. So I guess there'd be more departures. So
also, a lot of them are loyal to Musk.
Well,
yeah,
but I will say this: I've actually talked to for before this all happened in the last couple of weeks. Talked to a lot of these guys. They have become embedded in a lot of these departments, and some have. But I agree with you. There might be some high profile Musk-esque. There are some people that had come from SpaceX or whatever. I get that. But I think the mission of Doge, from everything that I can pick up, they get this. They need this to continue. And frankly, a lot of the cabinet secretaries are bought in on it.
I agree. All right, next, Steve Ducey, a tweet from Laura Loomer. Nothing more informational than Laura Loomer tweeting about Steve Ducey, or Peter Ducey, rather. So here's what Peter Ducey is reporting from the White House lawn this morning. Put up that tweet. Or is this a video or a tweet? All right, play the video.
We're told that Tesla, still sitting there, the red Tesla with Florida tags, is either going to be given away or sold off. And
all right, so the Tesla's leaving, apparently. Now, I made a terrible mistake. I won't say as grave as Dan's not knowing who Rick Astley is, but Never Gonna Give You Up is not in Love Actually. Love Actually features Jump for My Love, of course, and Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas. What I was actually thinking of was Sarah Waddington, is that her name? Waddingham sings "Never Gonna Give You Up" at her father's funeral in what's a soccer show called?
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
Hannah Waddington.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So that's from Ted Lasso. It's not from Love Actually. I sincerely apologize. Now I'm filling with one more thing because I'm waiting for an additional video to be ready, which is this. Billion songs, billion downloads is nothing.
Really?
Paul sent me the Spotify list of all the downloads. Pride by Kendrick Lamar, Vampire, Olivia Rodrigo, Tainted Love, Soft Cell. I could go on and on. Songs I've never heard of.
The point was, well, Victoria Rodrigo and Taylor Swift and a lot of people that you mentioned, I don't think it's a shock they're getting a billion downloads. The idea that Rick Astley's song, which is it's sort of the joke is that it's not really. I mean, I do like it. Just I'll be clear on this, but I think
disagree. It's been around longer, for one thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying a billion turns out to be not that big a deal. But I take your point. It's a hit in a different way.
Right.
How long is the last video I wanted to show? Any idea? I know it's not ready, but it's
50 seconds. It's ready to go.
50 seconds. All right, Dan. It turns out that you are not the only person laboring in ignorance about what rickrolling is. For instance, here's a young man who also didn't know what it was.
My friend, who I've known for years, he sends me an email, and in that email is a link. And I'm thinking, well, he sent me something to look at. I click on the link, and then all of a sudden, boom, the video for Never Gonna Give You Up starts. And I'm like, okay, why is he definitely sending that? I say to him, okay, yeah, funny, whatever, we're on holiday, I'll speak to you soon. And he does it again. And I think it was a different link this time even, but sure enough, a few seconds later, I called him. I said, what are you doing? Right? And he's laughing. And he said, well, it's a Rickroll. You don't know what that is? And I'm like, well, no. And he kind of explained that this thing was blowing up on the internet. Somebody had the bright idea to send a link.
That's Rick Astley.
That could be anything.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, boom, Never Gonna Give You Up comes in, the video, and you have been Rickrolled.
So, Dan, for the second straight day, I must apologize to you. If Rick Astley himself does not know what rickrolling is, I think you can be forgiven for not knowing.
Yeah, don't hold me account. All right.
Yeah.
You know, by the way, when I was texting with some of my group chat colleagues, I had to Google several terms that were being used. I am culturally challenged, apparently.
Well, don't, Dan, I may know Rick Astley and Rick Roll, but That's where my pop culture current knowledge ends. So in the 80s, somewhere the John Hughes era was where I stopped having any sort of understanding of what was going on.
Yeah, Emma Joe got me.
Frank, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what your knowledge of Rickrolling is, and what's on your mind.
Well, I didn't know either. I had to look it up. I'm so embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed, Frank.
No, I am, because I've heard this for years and years and years. It's just one of these things that you just never bother to look up, and now I know. So now I'm so educated. I'm so happy. I'm north of
maybe we can get another billion if everyone today rickrolls somebody.
Well, I did. I just clicked on it in 2 locations, and so hey, I've added 2. So I'm north of Boston.
Frank, hold on. Frank, hold on 1 second. I never read the chat, but I glanced at it. If you didn't know what Rickrolling is, despite my apologizing to Dan, don't put it in the chat. Trust me and Sean. It's embarrassing that you didn't know. Trust us.
Yes, it is.
Just being honest. Frank, go ahead.
Well, anyway, I'm on the CDC website, and the CDC says 90% of the $4.5 trillion in annual healthcare expenditures are for people with chronic and mental health conditions. Now, a significant portion of that's going to be Medicare and Medicaid. 30 years ago, it used to be the last 6 months of life or something like this, and they were complaining about that. I fought against that. But anyway, so some portion of that, as I say, is Medicare and Medicaid, and I'd like to know how much we could expect to save on Medicare and Medicaid if we eliminate some portion of that 4.5 trillion, 90% of that. And I'd like to know how that is not being discussed or talked about or anything like that, because it seems to me that's a significant amount of money. So anyway, that's my my comment.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is, how is it on earth is it possible that 7 out of 500 citations in this Maha report were like AI generated or something like that? Is this Gen Z, spanking us, or is it? How could that happen? His Fauci book was never challenged. None of those citations was challenged by anybody that I'm aware of. But here we have this report, and I just want to know what happened. Is it sabotage? Is it just carelessness? What happened? And nobody's reporting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my question.
Okay, Sean.
It's actually an interesting question, because in the White House, we've talked previously about the job of the staff secretary. Got a lot of attention in the first Trump. It's a largely unknown position. That's their job in the White House, to literally go through documents. You see Will Sharf out there when he hands the president the executive orders. And that's the White House procedure. He fact checks stuff. He makes sure that they make sure if it goes out the door, it's spot on. HHS and other places, like when I was at USTR, everyone generally has a staff secretary, but you're relying on that process and that person to do their job, right? So that when something gets floated up to the secretary's level, it's going to be public. Generally, the staff secretary of the particular agency looks at it and says, okay, here are these sites. The question is, how thorough do they do their job and whatever? 2 things I'll say about that. And I just want to be clear with you, Frank, I agree with your sentiment. This was a big enough report on a big enough issue that it should have been bulletproof, right? So I just want to be clear on that. I did see some interesting reporting that, the average, when you look at like the Journal of American Medicine and a couple of these other publications, their error rate is much higher when it comes to citations. I'm not excusing any of it, because I think wherever you put it, if you're going to tell someone that there's medical information that they should rely on or live their life by, then it should be accurate and fully cited. So I'm not making excuses, but I do think that hopefully they've learned their lesson on this, that somebody's being held accountable for it, and that it never happens again.
How did it get in there, and how was it not caught? Now, you talked about how it was not caught, but how did it get there in the first place?
Because it just depends. Again, on how who was the lead drafter, who got something. I like I said, I've been involved in a lot of this stuff. Let's take, for example, at the State of the Union speech or a joint address, everybody gets a chop at it and puts things in. And then again, the staff secretary's job is to go through and say, where'd you get that? Let me run that down the rabbit hole. Let me make sure that that's bulletproof. So sometimes it's a very narrow thing. So somebody says, I got this report, I'm handling it. I can't answer your question, though, because I don't know. And I think that matters. And that's why I think the broader piece is there should be some accountability on this, because it's embarrassing the movement that Bobby and others have led, and obviously to the White House as well.
I'd like some reporting on it, so, what happened. So
Well,
that's
yeah. So, Frank, the only way to do reporting on that is if somebody speaks unauthorized. I urge the HHS to come clean and explain it, because I think it'd be good for the movement.
Yeah.
But they're not going to do that, unfortunately. So somebody's going to have to leak, and that's hard to get.
Well,
Because
I would just say one last thing, Frank. If this is what I think it is, a lot of times there's warring interests, right? Which is,
right.
I want to put this in the thing. Frank says, Sean, that's stupid, or whatever, and I win the day and I put it in. So we'll see how that breaks down, because to Mark's point, it's going to take somebody to dime somebody else out. And in a situation like this, generally there's 2 or 3 sides that are saying, I want more of this in there, or I don't think that study should be, or I want this study in. Somebody advocated for it. I would guarantee almost that somebody said, I don't think we should do that, or we should cite it this way, or that's not a valid citation. But I think that we'll find out sooner or later.
The irony, Frank, is if this was a Democratic president, the Democratic base would go ballistic. Like, it just kind of the academic, kind of do-gooder in them would be like, this is unbelievable. And that might be where heads would have actually rolled.
But there must be a story there. And by the way, how much money are we going to save with reducing the chronic disease?
It's sloppiness. I mean,
look, that's the broader issue, by the way, which I wish we could spend more time on, because there are so many decisions that get made regarding our healthcare that are so short-sighted. And if we just solved certain things and did more preventative care, it would pay off in the long term. Our insurance system is stupid the way it's set up. We don't have healthcare. We've got, we don't prevent health issues from coming up. Long-term chronic systemic issues, could a lot of them be addressed if we had a better model to do this? So it's a great question, a great topic, and probably worthy of its own show.
Yeah, there's two things that have occurred in this administration, not unique, but distinctive. One is many examples of unprofessional sloppiness in Doge posting things on the site, and in the example you're citing, Frank, and I wish the administration would be less sloppy. I would be less unprofessional, less careless. Peggy Noonan has a long list of which she says are ethical failures on the part of the administration, particularly things having to do with the president's personal wealth. Same thing. I wish Doge and people who care about professionalism and good government would say, well, we love the president, we love what he's doing, but these shouldn't be partisan issues. President shouldn't be getting rich off of being president, and HHS shouldn't be using AI to write faulty citations. It'd be great if they would stand up on those two things, but I don't unfortunately anticipate it. But the press must scrutinize it. And you're right, Frank, it'd be great to have some sunlight on this, but it's a very hard story to get at. Thank you for your question.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you for being parted two-way. Trying to get my dad to come on and say if he knows what Rickrolling is, but so far he's declined. Greg, as long as you promise not to crash, come on in, unmute, tell folks what's on your mind and where you are, including the name of the specific road you're on.
Oh, he's moving now. All right.
Greg, you're not unmuted, and you're driving, making me a little uncomfortable. Can you unmute or no?
Oh my God.
All right, Greg, work on that.
Keep your eyes on the road.
Work on that. All right. Hold on. Randy, come on in, Randy. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind today.
I'm in Detroit.
Yeah, you're on.
I was wondering if you guys think there's any way this Musk-Trump thing is kind of scripted. It kind of shifts the debate from, you kind of had the Republicans pulling both ways. You had some people saying too many cuts, which kind of the question earlier, you had some saying not enough cuts. This kind of shifts it so there's just one side, right? It's just the one side saying, not enough cuts. So you get, it's kind of hard for the Josh Howeys of the world to say, there's too many cuts. Is that possible? Because Trump's been known to do that before, right?
No, the answer is no. Anybody want to say anything besides
no? I just say there's no way, like not even close. This is not helpful to either man. So it's not scripted, it's not wanted, it's not helpful. So no, and no.
Dan.
I tend to agree. This would be fairly shocking because it's just been a headache for every Republican who does not want to have to touch this.
Right, it just happened so fast. I mean, one day, one day's in the White House, the next day it's This thing blew up, and it's so quickly. How does
I will say, I think some of
it
it,
happen
like
so fast?
the travel ban the other day, I do think those were shiny red balls to distract from other less flattering news that was going on. So
Yeah,
Trump
that's
is
true.
very good at that. I mean, and I give him credit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Randy, thank you. Raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation.
hey, Mr. Halperin.
Particularly if you haven't before. My father's cultural literacy pretty much ended at Babar the elephant. But Dad, just curious if you know what Rickrolling is.
No idea.
No idea. Do you know now after watching the video, or you still don't quite get it?
Don't get it.
You send somebody a link saying like, hey, here's a great recipe for chocolate chip cookies. And they got a link, and you click on the link, and it goes to the video of Rick Astley saying never going to give you up. Or you send a link saying like, here's the W-9 form you requested. You click on the link, and it goes to Rick Astley. And if you fall for that prank, you've been Rickrolled.
I see.
All right. Do you know?
I have your reaction, Mr. Halperin.
Do you know who Babar? Do you know who Babar the elephant is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking. Thank you. Good
Mark,
to see you.
does James know what Rickrolling is?
He does actually. James.
Okay, all right.
James is obsessed with Rickrolling. He asked me about it all the time. Lance, welcome in. Tell us who you're cheering for. Musk versus thanks, Dad. Musk versus Trump, and what's on your mind?
I'm actually backing Trump in this, and this is kind of going to go directly into my question, because I think I'm going to ask Sean it, but I think we should double dare him. I think we should see whether Musk really actually cares about this debt. So I asked you a question I think last time, saying, well, if we can't get interest rates down, we should. I would say not push back on the economy, but we should do something about carried interest or something like that. I still think we should do something about carried interest, and there are many great things in the bill. Trump is getting the Atlanta Fed is projecting 4% growth. Inflation is down to 2.1%, and Trump deserves a lot of credit on that. And if there's going to be a crash in the economy, more than likely it's going to be because Powell has interest rates too high, or because something going on with the petrodollar or something outside of Trump's control. I don't think it's going to just because Trump just automatically passed this bill. But I would also like to say, if you front load the spending cuts, and you get rid of the H-1B1 tax credits, and the H-1B1 tax credit and H-1B1 tax, basically all the Visa tax credits that corporations get, and get rid of the carbon capture tax credits, because quite frankly, anyway, perspective you look at it, how those credits are supposed to work to promote carbon capture is wrong. So if you cut all of that and you try to raise revenue also by taxing long-term capital gains is wages, or all cap and adding a surtax on the short-term capital gains, or just taxing all capital gains is just wages, and just stop ending special treatment and just send Elon Musk taxes up. You could pay the cost of the bill, but a lot of it's because the Fed has interest rates up, and this is why Ron Johnson's the biggest boomer in the world, because you can't start the 2019 tax bill because it's automatically going to cost more because interest rates are higher than when they were in 2019.
All right, Lance, thank you for all that. Dan and then Sean will comment, and appreciate you sharing.
Look, I think interest rates are where they are here because the Fed is, and I think appropriately so, very worried about inflation taking off for a lot of different reasons. And I think everyone can say they shouldn't be, but as we saw when it hit you, it was not pleasant. So I get it. I think they likely maybe will do a cut by the end of the year and just kind of, they're going to be a little cautious. I think, Lance, look, I think in an ideal world, I understand what you're saying. If you were to pull that much money out of the economy and make that many cuts that rapidly, I think it would be a negative for the country. It's a bigger question about, cutting spending and how best to do it. And I'll be curious if Trump focuses on this, because I continue to believe he doesn't believe in it.
Sean, real quick, because we're at time.
Yeah, I just say, Lance, great. I mean, a lot of interesting ideas put out there. I would say at this point, the bill is pretty much 99% baked. We need to focus on getting it over the hill, allowing the economy to reap the benefits of it. But it's a lot of great discussion and ideas. Unfortunately, we are where we are in the process, and they need to focus on votes.
Lance, thank you, man. Great to see you. If you haven't watched Dan and his 4 colleagues on yesterday's group chat, it's online now on the YouTube page. Please take a look at it. Great second episode, Dan. Congratulations to you and the others. Great second episode. 4 o'clock today. Random offense with our friend Ethan Strauss. Again, if you haven't sampled the show, though, we talk a little bit of NBA and other stuff. That's 4 p.m. today with senior staff writer of culture and NBA coverage of the Ringer, Wozni Lambre. And then I'll be on at 6 o'clock tonight on 2-8 tonight. Christine Rosen's supposed to be on, but Christine Rosen has been announced previously. So I'm not going to get.
He is confirmed.
I'm not going to guarantee you she's coming. Lori says she's coming. I hope she does. She's a great guest. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'll see you at 6 tonight. And again, the new episode of Next Up, you can watch it on YouTube or listen to it. It's available, and it's got, as you saw before, it's got Congressman Ro Khanna and Meghan McCain and I talk about whether Taylor Swift is pregnant. You will not believe our conclusion. Sean, what do you have tonight?
White House Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair joins me.
Good guess.
3 topics: Elon Musk, the big beautiful bill, and the midterms. I'm going to cover it all with him. James generally is not a guy who holds back, so I'm excited for this.
He's good. He comes to play.
He comes to play.
He's shot up with truth serum the way Elon shot up with ketamine. Non-stop.
Your words, not mine.
I'm just relying on
6 p.m. tonight on
Wall
YouTube.
Street Journal. All right. Thank you all for watching, spending the week with us. I'll see you at 6 tonight, and then the 3 of us will be back at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Have a great weekend, and let's go Pacers.
Didn't see that one coming.
Thanks, everybody.